Hi everyone, it's so nice to see you again virtually. You're on Music and Chat with Shueh-li Ong, and it's a good morning, as you can see from the sunshine through the drapes from me to you in Singapore. Please say hi in the live chat and let us know where you're tuning in from, and don't be backward and coming forward. And remember to put any questions you may have in this live chat so that I may attend to them as the stream moves along. Please don't be shy. It's always good when you respond to us in the live chat, so I know that we're having a hearty party. That's my favorite phrase, hearty party. Hi Mike, my good friend Mike Brunt, and Gary Mayula as well. They're there. Yes, Mike is tuning in from Eugene, Oregon, and Gary, who is 2 sticks 1 in the live chat. He's from Frederick, Maryland. I think I got it right. So I'm really excited to share with you our guests for today, because they are friends of mine who are friends of mine. And oh, I see Michelle, my dearest friend from way back. Hi, Michelle. Michelle is deeply associated with our guest today. And I want to say hi to Sam as well. Sam is another good old friend tuning in from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for being here. All right. So, you know how I usually start my live stream? I usually start by playing something for you. And today I'm going to play Isabel, which is from the album I've claimed to be working on for years now, and I'm still working on it. So I'm going to do this. Oops, sorry. I'm going to do this. Here we go. That's the new Apple OS for you. It will detect your hand signs such as this and produce these lovely hearts. That's me to my friends out there. Okay, I'm gonna play for you Isabel now. But first I'll turn on the Thermin cam. So that was Isabel 2. We're tracking the other pieces at the moment, so I'm really excited. We're doing drums and bass. So can't wait to share the final product with you. So let's move on. Mocha Chai, a film production lab, was founded in Singapore in 2011. We took a tour of their facilities last year during their open house. And today we chat with their founder filmmaker, Yee Wei Chai, and their resident audio director, Xander Toh. Let's welcome in Yee Wei and Xander. Hey, you guys.
Hello. It doesn't work.
Oh, you gotta turn on the there's something up there you gotta turn on. I'll share it with you after this. So Yee Wei, Xander, thanks for making time for us in your busy schedule. It's a Monday and it's sunny, it's not raining, so you have good reason to be up there and early in your office.
It's been raining almost every other day. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
Tell me about it. So that's Singapore for you. And those of you who've never been here and not know much about the film industry, I'd like to begin this chat with a quote from Associate Professor of the National Institute of Education, Chile Tan. His paper, which was researched while he was with the National Library, I think 2010. It's entitled A Comparative Study of Film Criticism on Singapore Films in Post-1965 Singapore. And the quote goes like this. The peak years of Singapore's film industry spanned from 47 to 72, dominated by two major film studios, Shaw and Cathay Chris, who had their own sets, studios, and editing rooms. The industry declined significantly after Singapore's independence in 1965. For those history buffs out there, there's a little bit more tidbits for you. So it declined after the independence and also due to the lack of governmental support. The first Singapore feature film was produced in 91, called Medium Rare, which unfortunately wasn't very well received, partially due to the director being British and the lead actors being American. Kind of makes sense. The industry started picking up only in '95 with the release of Eric Koo's Meatball Man, and I do have a picture of this. This is a screenshot of the actual article online if you are curious to see it, to read it. But here is the poster for Meatball Man. And I'll end the quote off with this. The 90s was characterized by films shot predominantly in Mandarin Chinese and occasionally in English, deeply rooted in reflecting the urban lifestyle with a strong focus on life in public housing. So again, this is a clip from the article online. That was a research paper by Mr. Chi Tan, if you're curious to look it up. Yee Wei, I'll start with you. You have...
Yes. Just a quick interesting note. Mocha Chai actually was the one who did the restoration for Meatball Man, the 4K restoration.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, there you go. It's a
For
small world.
Yeah.
Well, do you have something to say about it? Like before we begin the real formal questioning?
It's interesting when you mention like, the 90s was like sort of like a mini comeback resurgence of Singapore cinema, and I was a fanboy then, right? So many of the films that came out, like Meatball Man, Forever Fever, I was still a student when those films were coming out, and interestingly, I'll never forget this. I mean, this is gonna date it's gonna date me, right? It was in late 90s. I heard from a bunch of friends that a Singapore film was available at Blockbuster for rent. We had a little mini gathering. We borrowed the disc. It was called That's the Way I Like It.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually Forever Fever with a new title and somewhat dubbed for the American market, released by Miramax. And we were watching a Singapore film in Michigan. It was quite surreal. Yes.
Wow. So, thank you for that. Yeah, those little invaluable gems of, of your memory and all that. That's what I like to hear during this interview chat as well. And we'll begin with you having had a business degree, but film called to you. So I can only imagine that when film called to you, it was during your school days. A little inkling of it.
But honestly, it was never I think we were, at least the Singaporean mindset back then, we were very much geared towards engineering, business, and it was never in my radar to even consider media as a career. In fact, when I was heading out to university college in US in '97, the first film school in Singapore that started was the Ngee FSV. It started maybe 97 or 98, or is it 96, around then.
Okay.
So it was not on my radar at all to even consider having a career in film. I consider myself somewhat of a hobbyist along the way. Yes, I did some film classes for fun. I was an avid photographer back in secondary school or high school, depending on where your listeners are from. And it probably helped to build some foundation for my filmmaking and being a little technical myself. And eventually, it was in my late 20s, almost in my 30s, early 30s, when I decided to have my career change. It wasn't something that I planned for.
So do you
Sorry
think?
to be sorry. It wasn't as dramatic as
No,
yeah.
that's pretty dramatic. A lot of us have similar stories, you know. Well, I will expose mine to you since you've been so kind and expose yours to me, to us. Most people I meet imagine that I pick music consciously, you know, with in strong intent, with like passion. You know, it's so passionate. I had no clue.
I think back then, or at least I think it's somewhat reflected in the kind of films I make. I often like to talk about what is the idea of a Singaporean dream, right?
Ah,
And I think our government is so um like we the idea of how Singapore incorporated, right? That the idea of Singapore incorporated and running the country like a company, like a business entity, um, is so deeply ingrained into even our regular population's mindset that we don't realize that our dream is somewhat more of the nation's dream, and that aren't much space for our own individual dreams to come through. That,
ah,
that does it make sense?
yes.
And this is
So
something I
yeah.
only like as you study sociology, or you take a step back and look at the country from a macro level, that you start realizing, hey, for people who really do break out or want to do these little pockets of pursuing our own Singaporean dream, we are actually not the mainstream.
I understand. See, yeah. So the mentality that we have is for the collective, yeah, for the country's well-being, and it would seem culturally wise, and it's not just Singapore. I think a lot of other Asian cultures share similar, not just Asian, some European cultures share similar sociological phenomenon, such as this. You know, you wanting to do what you want to do seems selfish in a negative way, instead of for the group or for the collective. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So a lot of these cultures, the people who live in these cultures, find it hard to want to express outside those boundaries, which leads me to my next question. Now that you brought it up, I managed to read an interview that you gave here 65. I think this was in 2020, and you described filmmaking as the best way to express yourself, you know, and an individual stepping out of those boundaries. How and what need to express yourself influence the stories that you've chosen to tell? Are the stories that you've chosen to tell about you, but you know, it features fictitious characters? What I'm trying to say is, for example, as a songwriter, a lot of people who are very supportive of my work like to know how I got my ingredients, so to speak. And when it comes to lyrics, they often think that I'm writing about some real thing that happened in my life. Oh, that was you, and this person kind of ditched you. You know, if it's like a love song that went wrong, I'll say, well, not necessarily. I just put three people's stories together and I created one person, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the question for you, Yee Wei. Like, you know, what about expressing yourself did you felt you needed to do, and how does that manifest itself in the stories that you've told?
I think subconsciously, since I was in school, I've always been finding ways to express myself per se through
Yeah.
different means, right? At one point, it was I was in choir. uh, Not to say I'm a very good singer. We sing as a group, right?
Okay.
So you blend in, and at one point I was huge into photography, uh, and then at one point, but all throughout these, I love watching movies, right? And then I've always been finding ways to. at one point I was deep into, I have my own blog, and I think this is a very human instinct to want to tell stories, which is back from caveman days, right? People want to record and want to tell stories through spreading by having people sit around a campfire and sharing stories, or drawings in the cave, and as technology evolved, we invented things like books, we invented things like writing tools, and then we have better ways of recording all these stories. And in this day and age, we have the phone, which is a great medium, right? Evolving, to me, it's like, it's a video form of blogging, basically, and if you reach back further, it's like, people have been writing diaries, right? So blogging is like diaries, except that it's more private, but in the same way, right? The tools that allow us to keep private allows us right now to also broadcast.
Yes, true.
But everyone's just telling little snippets of their life and their stories, and I found the best way for myself to express what I want to say through films. Probably that's my so-called final medium. I'm still trying to figure out TikTok, but I'm not sure yet whether it will move on to another form. and I think different people have to find, like yours, you found your way of expressing yourself. Xander himself as well. So I think we are all got different paths to getting to the point where we find out what is the medium we choose to anchor ourselves in.
So I've got a few more questions for you, Yee Wei, before I move on to Xander. And Xander's been very patiently sitting there and nodding his head in affirmation of what you've said. So thanks, Xander. At this point, I do want to say hello to the rest of our viewers who have since entered the live chat. I see someone called Jay, and Jay's from San Diego, and he says, my teacher acted in medium rare. Jay, if you're willing to divulge your first name, we shall say, hello, so-and-so. Where's your teacher now, so-and-so? Oh, the person is Rani Murthy, your teacher. Is that right, Jay? Let us know. And we see Chance one less as well in the live chat. Hi, Chance. Chance and Michelle, we will tell you in a few short seconds how they're involved in Mocha Chai. But so I'll move on to the next question again from Yee Wei. So in your stories, you decide that the first feature film would be Blood Ties. But this was, for the viewers not aware of this, a 2009 release, and it was considered a revenge thriller in the horror vein. I got a picture. Hold on. I've got a poster of it looks like a Blu-ray release of the movie, but here it is, Blood Ties. So, Yee Wei, I'm just going to remove this last. Tell us the story behind this. It's a Mandarin Chinese language movie. For the viewers, we call it Mandarin Chinese because under Chinese there could be other dialects as well. So when it's referred to as Mandarin Chinese, it's Mandarin Chinese. Back to you, Yee Wei.
This was my first feature film that it was released 2009. It starred Zheng Pei and the late Zhang Gong, Kenneth Zhang from Hong Kong. They're both veterans from Hong Kong cinemas. And the story that I wrote was very much inspired by things that I was influenced by growing up, Hong Kong horror films. as well as Sam Raimi in terms of the kind of stories I would like to go after, but all set within a context that I'm familiar with in Singapore. So that film came out, it was picked up by Distribution Workshop, and it was released in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore, and in a way that sparked my entry into my foray into this new career.
Were there any personal anecdotes in the story, like you know, something in there it's a real it really happened? I've not watched the movie, so I don't know.
Okay, it's pretty violent.
It's pretty
we had to. It was released M18 in Singapore. It had a fair share of multiple dialects in the film as well, which I think was rather interesting for a Singapore film. I think generally, if you look at Singapore films, it seems we have a splatter of multiple languages like Chinese, English, but even our Chinese and our English is very much with a local flavor. We don't speak the way Taiwanese and China people from mainland, as well as even across from Malaysia. We all have different accents, our own slangs, and our mix of Malay and some Hokkien and into our language is rather unique in this way. And I often like to, when people say we don't speak good English or we don't speak good Mandarin or whatever, I'm like, I like to see can we just see our own language as a foreign language itself on its own, as opposed to trying to define it as having to be good in this or good in that. But it has its own personality as it evolved over the decades.
Thank you for that enlightening little explanation. Curious about Blood Ties, what was one risk you took? Because this was your first feature. And what was one thing you learned from the experience you vowed never to do again?
There were many things. In fact, there were many things. I mean, I think I was very fortunate to have. It was produced by Oak 3, a bunch of veterans. They were from the first batch of FSV students, if I'm not wrong, that came out, and they started a company called Oak 3. They also had. This was their second local film that they produced. They produced another film prior, called The Road Less Traveled. So they were very kind in trying to surround me with very established filmmakers and my assistant director. It was very experienced. He was actually the assistant director for Mocha Chai. Suddenly the name slipped me. I have no excuse for this, but it's he and the actors put together by my producers as well were all very experienced. So their goal was to say, hey, since this is your first feature, let's surround you with people who are much better than you, and in a way that shaped the way I work on my future films.
Your expectations?
Which I look upon film more as a collaborative art. I do not see it purely as a project that requires it's a one input. You get an actor. You expect the actor to also collaborate in the creative process. You get the sound designer. You get scoring. I am not the expert in all these different fields, but I get the best that I can, or the most suitable for a particular project, for them, and for them to explore and creatively contribute to this project that we are on. For that, period of our lives, you know.
So would you say that you're hands-on in every department of the filmmaking slash film production? When I say
Yes,
hands-on,
but I've learned to be more. The more I shoot, I realize the more relaxed I become.
okay.
The more I let go, you know. But of course there's still controls, but it's hard to describe. But directing is directing, but not directly
Micromanaging?
micromanaging. Yes.
Okay.
Does
That's
it make
good to
sense?
know.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks. So we're moving on to a different topic because it's got to do with another of your feature films. It's about songs. Many find solace in a song. Some find anthems in a song. I remember a good friend of mine many years ago once took, I think it was a Culture Club or Boy George song, I'm Your Man or something like that. Or at least that was the refrain in the chorus. And he said, I used to listen to that because that was my anthem, he said, you know. So I thought, oh, that's very interesting. He just took a section of the song and said this was what the song meant to him. So I'm going to direct our viewers, if you're not local, to Sin Yao, which is Singapore's Mandarin pop folk music, made popular in the 70s with subjects such as the coming of age, e.g. aspirations, friendships, social opinions. And then ask you, Yee Wei, because you profess to be a fan of Sin Yao, so I read. What, are you still a fan of Sin Yao? or is this like back, it's gone now you moved on to Culture Club?
Well, Culture Club and Sing Yao probably was existing in the same time zone.
I'm sorry, I picked something. I don't know who to pick.
but yeah, Sing Yao is made up of two words, right? Singapore, although there's a pun on it being new, but Sing is taken from the word Singapore and Yao is like folk. So it was very much a folk-driven, grassroots-driven kind of movement in music, where I think I related a lot to it, partly because I think it reflected the dreams of younger Singaporeans wanting to break out in the music world. And from there, a lot of the singers back then went on to produce for singers that became international stars. People like Stephanie Sun, J.J. Lin, they were all the product of Sing Yao singers who eventually became the producers. And I saw that as, wow, that's a great representation of Singaporean dream, you know. And the motivation to do that Girl in Pinafore was driven by my expression of what a Singaporean dream might be. And if you watch the film, it ends in a way where I pretty much said that, hey, this Singaporean dream is nothing but just a dream. And we have to move on from our dream and put away childish things as we grow up, you know, and go into proper careers. That's the sort of a bittersweet ending to that film, but in a way, that's the way I see how Singaporeans are being faced when are facing their reality when it comes to the real world, especially for those who wants to pursue their dreams in media. We don't really have a media industry, and for those who are in it and persist, often they have two jobs. Or they really have to find ways to survive. This is something I think a lot. Personally, as a business person, like business student, right? If you think about looking at things from a very practical perspective, to enter the media or arts in Singapore, it's a bold move, simply because we don't really have a sustainable market, um, and you do have to be in it for the passion to stay, to be to stay
Well,
long within this arena.
I understand what you're saying. Thanks for that honest revelation of Singapore's artistic, creative entertainment. Actually, it's more like artistic and creative sector. And I'm going to leave it there. I did show a poster of that girl in Pinafore. And if you don't know what a pinafore is, please look it up. But it's like a dress that a girl wears, but it's almost like what you call them. Can't think of the word. But it usually drapes over something else like a shirt or a t-shirt. It's got two straps and it's kind of loose. And I think in Singapore, for the longest of time, uniforms of girls' schools would consist of a shirt and a pinafore. I don't know if they still do that. I haven't looked closely.
I think Xander worked a little bit on that and that film
you
as
did?
well.
Oh, I did not know that.
But back then, I didn't have Mocha Chai laboratories set up yet.
Yeah.
So the sound post was worked on by it's still existing. It's been around for a long time. Yellow Box Studios.
Oh, right.
And Xander used to work in Yellow Box.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I've got his details further down. But you established Mocha Chai in 2011, no? Or later?
Well,
Did I
yes,
get it
but
wrong?
we didn't start off as Adobe.
Got it.
We only got into full post-production probably, I don't know the exact point, but we didn't start off that way. We started off purely doing cinema deliveries, mastering. It's very focused.
Got it.
It's a little technical, but yeah.
I understand. Got it. So for those who've not seen, not many of us would have seen that Girl in Pinafore, but it has a senior contest in its plot. That's why, I asked Yee Wei about his intrigue and whether he's still intrigued.
And I see Xin Yao as like the golden oldies, right? Will it come back again? I don't think so. This question has been asked. In fact, when the film was released, it got quite a lot of grassroots attention, and there was a TV show that actually invited myself and a minister on to a TV show to talk about, Xin Yao, do you think there's a resurgence and all these things? And I honestly felt, I mean, of course, being the minister, they have to say things, the standards of Chinese in Singapore is strong and so on. But I beg to differ, simply because I was quite a big fan of the Mandarin culture. I took Chinese literature when I was in school.
Wow.
Which only certain few could do that, because you have to be good enough in Chinese higher. They don't call it higher Chinese back then. They call it Chinese language as the first. Chinese as the first language, and to have a certain score before it could be streamed into Chinese literature.
Wow.
And we are the minorities. Most people are better in English in Singapore than in Mandarin, for those people who are not familiar. And especially for those who don't understand Mandarin, just because we can speak some Asian words doesn't mean our vocabulary is necessarily strong. And that's why you could tell when Singaporeans do travel to, say, China or Taiwan, the majority of them could not share similar lingo, or the way to communicate. From the Chinese perspective or from the Taiwanese, they know, you're not a local.
Yeah.
Simply from the vocabulary that we use, as well as the accent.
Enunciation. Yeah, I remember many years ago, I had a colleague from China, and he told me frankly there are more than 300 dialects in China. In my mind, I thought maybe 10. More than 300. That's how do you deal with more than 300?
Qin Shi Huang had a solution for that. He united everyone with one.
With one language, yeah. So that's when we mention, again, to our viewers who might not be familiar, when we say Mandarin Chinese, we're talking about the unified language that we all read. Character-wise, it's all similar. It's just, that it's spoken differently. And even between the north and south, of northern parts and southern parts of China, you enunciate the same words a little differently in the articulation part. So I noticed.
and I think a lot of people don't realize that, say, dialects do not sound the same. It's not like you could hear 普通话, listen to 普通话, and you will be able to understand the dialects. They sound totally different. What you're talking in terms of more akin to accent, like the southern accent and the in New York, and say the accents are different.
LA and New York.
Yeah,
kind
but
of like.
they could understand each other, right? Unlike, say, a Shanghainese dialect, speaking Shanghainese and speaking Hokkien, and Cantonese. If you only know 普通话, most likely you won't understand any of the words that's coming out of their mouth, because
Try and travel to China on your own without Google Translate, or even then, Google Translate won't have all the dialects.
But the 普通话, in a way, is the so-called unified way that they're trying to that is most common. Like in Taiwan, they speak their Taiwan 国语 is 普通话. It sounds the same. So it is matter of different accent and some terms. That is probably more equitable analogy, probably.
There you go, viewers. I'd like to also say hello to our new jumped into the live chat viewers. So good to see our regular viewer from the Netherlands, Dread Red Earth Dragon. And we have some local friends of yours, Beverly Fong. Hi, Beverly. And Vlad Fleet. I'm not familiar with you. Please tell us who you belong to, quote unquote, as in who you're friends with.
They actually worked on Wonderland.
Well, there you go. That explains it all. Welcome, one and all, from Wonderland. Nice to see you all. Thanks so much for dropping by. Now,
I think we should talk more about the sound stuff.
I was just about to jump across to Xander. So you said that Xander had a hand in the sound part. I also know that Yee Wei, you said you're responsible for some of the sound work. So Xander, you tell me how you were involved in that girl in Pinafore before we move on to something else about your illustrious career, Xander.
I started when I just worked on The Girl in Pinafore back then. I was pretty new, so I didn't really know much about dialogue cleaning. My part is doing dialogue back then, I didn't know the threshold of noise floor. So I'm afraid the mixer we needed things that to be very, very clean. So in fact we end up doing a lot of ADR, which sounded quite bad in the whole film itself. So yeah, that's my learning curve back then.
Did you say after that experience, I'm walking out here and I'm never coming back?
No, I mean it's still a learning experience back then. Yeah.
I think he was referring to the film itself being heavily dubbed, which was probably not the right approach. I mean, this being my film, I'm very critical of my own stuff as well. That was one aspect that was a little questionable when we decided to do that. And yeah, that's probably one lesson. Although it was my third film, that I vow to be very careful and to watch over when we do that. ADR is great if you know how to treat them.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it will sound dubbed. The idea is not for dubbed voices to sound dubbed.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it does, something is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very distracting for the viewer, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm always amazed at how some of the ADR stuff is done to a point where even when I'm conscious that it's dubbed,
Then something's wrong.
Yeah. So there you go. Xander, you have done quite a slew of sound roles under the sound for film, and I do this because, you know, most people think sound for film is just one thing, which is soundtrack, but there are various roles, and it makes your job really complicated and also requires a lot of sophistication and attention, and your poor ear is probably really fatigued by the end of each session. But some of the roles you played, and I'll list a few for those curious. Again, we talked about ADR. You did some also for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, sort of Destiny. This was a 2016 film. Crazy Rich Asians, which was 2018. You're a sound editor for a Mocha Chai original, Wonderland, which was released last year. You're sound mixer for The Man on the Other Side, and this had a special mention for sound design, it seems. You're also re-recording mixer / sound designer for Geylang by Singaporean film producer Boy Kwong, which was released 2022. And again, for our viewers, those who are not familiar with the last two roles, sound mixer deals with on-set recording, and often you work with a boom operator. Re-recording mixer is a post-production finishing role where background noise, dialogue, music, sound effects, and the lot create the final audio track. So these may sound the same under sound for film, but they're quite different jobs. So hats off to you. If you can see my virtual hat. Xander, which do you consider the most intricate and undervalued role in the audio department?
I think it's the dialogue itself.
Oh, yeah? Do you have like an anecdote to demonstrate this?
Actually, to clean up a dialogue and also to make sure it doesn't have any artifacts, it's quite hard in terms of it's like you need to remove the white noise, and after that you need to use like a kind of like a Photoshop for audio. We call it RX. Then to remove individuals, clicks, pops, saliva noise, breath, even like bars or any like buzzing noise, hum. Yeah, so we need to really individually remove them.
Wow,
so it's quite tedious.
So you do this manually one after another? There's no automation process? No AI has come to your rescue yet?
There is AI, but there's limitation that can be done. But you still have to do all the tedious work.
Wow.
Cleaning up.
Is that why you haven't been to the hairdresser?
No. I just want to keep my hair.
Nah, I'm just teasing you. Oh, in the US they'll say us messing with you. So does that make you appreciate being the sound mixer even more? You know, your role as a sound mixer to get the best audio quality with the least interference in the recording, so that the re-recording mixer, if you were also taking on that role, have less time, and then you can go to get your hair cut kind of thing?
Yes, definitely. We need to get things as isolated as clear as possible, because during the mixing stage we have a lot of won't face any like noise issue or ambience jump issue. And there's also particular reason, like let's say you need to pan your dialogue itself in terms of like, let's say emboss in the back or in the front or the sides. We don't have any like noise issue like floating around it. Yeah. So we have tried to give it as clean as possible. And also another issue will be like the QC in the future proving your projects. So let's say you need to tap over, we don't have any like noise floor issue or any like leak and stuff.
Yeah, dubbing. Wow. Again, I have in my first season of Music and Chat, I had a good friend of mine who's a boom operator who talked about her like woes, and she does Hollywood films. And if you, I mean, I'm sure you're not interested, but if you are, please check out an interview. It's quite interesting to talk to a boom operator and then to someone who works hand in hand as one of your jobs with the boom. Have you ever had to convince a director that a certain extra treatment, as a sound designer or remixer, that a certain treatment was necessary for the benefit of the project? Did you ever have to fight over what you think is for the good of the project, but the director or producer says, nope, we don't want to do it?
Yes, definitely. Actually, in fact, it's for the Yellow Cocoon.
Oh.
We did have, certain things that is like a bit technically noisy or way too quiet below the whole mix itself. So I have to really tell them in terms of technical point of view that you can't keep certain things too raw. It will be quite abrupt in the theater if you watch it as a whole film itself.
Oh, wow. So would you say that you are a movie buff as well? At least you like to go to an actual physical movie theater to experience what it's like, so you can take home your references. You go, well, when I was in that movie theater, I heard this, so I'm not going to do this. Do you do that kind of thing?
Yes, definitely. I do enjoy movie also. Like, I watch usually twice, one for the entertainment, the other side would be like more to watch work. So can't like focus on what they are doing in terms of sound.
I can't do that. When I watch something with sound or music, I start picking it apart.
It does happen.
Same, it does happen, and sometimes you really have to because we are in post production, we're extremely. I mean, not just in production, right? You're always looking for things that distracts you, which honestly it shouldn't. You should just focus on the story. But then, if the film is of a certain quality that actually brings attention to the flaws, then something's wrong with the film story itself, right? Maybe.
There you go, guys. So, Xander, I heard from Michelle you're also in a band. You play in a band. So, of course, I am of the notion that cross-disciplinary type skills or interests often come to interfere and benefit some of the work that you're doing, right? You can't help it. Strangely enough, what was it I was doing? I can't quite remember now, but I remember I was a pretty bad aim at one stage, and I started working with 3D animation, and for some strange reason, I realized it was helping my aim. I was a better aim because of the hand-eye coordination kind of thing. So there you go. So where's my question gone?
By the way, Xander is a Thai. You're into Thai boxing, right?
Oh, as well.
Yeah.
So
he goes for competitions, right? Yeah, he goes for competitions. He's good enough to travel out to Thailand for competition, right?
Yeah, it was just
so you know what I'm saying, that do you find anything that in your work, in your triangle or whatever, your triad, your film stuff, your band stuff, and your fighting stuff, competitive fighting stuff, do you find any skills or any abilities kind of cross over and assist each other, Xander?
Yes, Yes, actually, in terms of what I think is important in all these three aspects is details. We need to really focus on one thing in detail, like the basic of the film dialogue. Same as, let's say, for music, it's like the basic of the recording tightness. So everything will be really tight. For, let's say, fighting, your basic checks. All these are very fundamentals, but are the most important for all the aspects of things. All the things are basics, fundamentals are very important.
Yeah. Thanks, Xander, for sharing that. That's always been my area of curiosity. You know, I ask people that quite often, especially when I realize they're multi-skilled, and these areas tend not to be next to or associated with each other at all. How about Yee Wei? Are you in a similar category as Mr. Xander Toh here?
I don't fight. I don't do much sports other than swimming and running. But well, I mean, I think, okay, I do have quite I would like to think that I have a rather good eye for camera composition. I think that has a lot to do with how my love for photography, right, actually contributed a little bit to that. I'm not a cinematographer, but me being, okay, there's another aspect. I'm quite a nerd myself. I like a little bit of scripting, Unix programming and stuff. And that sort of led me to understand some of the technology a lot better, where I like to see new technologies coming up in terms of post-production, in terms of even production. And I say, hey, how do I use that in my new production? How can I use that as a tool to tell stories in a different way? Like, for instance, Atmos. There's probably more, that's when something new comes out, right? The first reaction I realized for a lot of Singaporean filmmakers were, I don't need it, or it's too expensive. But even when we take away the element of say, hey, it's the same price, we're not gonna charge you more for it. People are still a little afraid of trying things that's new.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, guys, you look upon it as a new tool, a new brush, a new canvas, a new material. How would you, like, as an artist, you should be excited by new things at your disposal. How do I use these tools to better tell my story? How there's something like sound influence script writing. For instance, you would never write, say, out of frame, a sound, mysterious sound appears, and the main character is curious, right? You would never write this if you weren't thinking in terms of how do I tell this story using the other tools at my disposal. We didn't used to be able to put sounds above us, right? Right now, as opposed to the character seeing a UFO, for instance, could you say it hears something strange, and the audience experience it the same way as the main character by not showing them and just letting them hear it, right? You let them hear what's gonna come before it actually comes. These things could be incorporated into even at pre-production stage. You don't even, and it's important to plan this, because how else do you direct the performance? Because you can't just tell them to do something and then make it up in post, right? You know what I mean? But it's always better when you already have something in plan, and it all boils down to, okay, how do I learn the new tools that comes along the way? Then how do I integrate it into my new film that I'm gonna work on?
Yes. And speaking
people
of
like James Cameron is a master at that, right? Where he always uses technology to tell stories in a different way.
So speaking of post and Atmos, I'm going to move on to Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell, and I have plenty of questions for Xander too, and some for you, Yee Wei. But so for those of you who are not familiar with this movie, it was a Vietnamese language drama, a protocol, a production house protocols project using Mocha Chai as post-pro facility. I do have a trailer of it. While I look for it, could one of you set it, the scene for us? It doesn't matter who.
Maybe Xander could talk a little bit about how is it like working with the director and the team.
Oh, you want to go that way first? Or
I don't know. Well,
I was going to show the trailer first, but because
maybe you want to tell a little bit about the story.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, it's a story of the main character gonna find himself through different kind of journey. So it's quite like a lot of philosopher and also like deep storytelling. So it's quite a lot of revealing from himself. So it's quite a very interesting journey. What you will see throughout this whole film.
Okay.
It's categorized by some as slow cinema.
Slow cinema.
It's a 3-hour epic made up of 50 shots.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But
I get it.
And that's where we thought, hey, wow, this is a great opportunity. That sound could really shape the experience of people who are watching the film.
Well, I'll play the trailer for those of you who are interested. This movie won the Camera d'Or Best First Feature Film at the 2023 Cannes Film Festival. Also, it got nominated for Best Sound at this year's Asian Film Fest, and Xander shares it with Vong Gia Bao. Xander was re-recording mixer according to IMDb. I'm not sure about Bao's role, but you can let us know after the trailer. So I'll play the trailer first.
Vậy, đức ghi là gì vậy chú?
Ở lớp học, con có bao giờ cho bạn mượn đồ chơi chưa?
Dạ rồi.
Lúc con cho mượn, con có nghĩ bạn đó trả lại cho con không?
Dạ có.
Thì đức tin nó cũng giống như vậy đấy.
Em có quan hệ gì với nạn nhân vậy?
Dạ, chị Hạnh là chị dâu của em. Dạ, con muốn gặp sơ phụ trách ở đây.
Anh cần tìm sơ phụ trách có việc gì không?
Con muốn gửi thằng cháu. Anh không thể hiểu nổi ý định mạo nhiệm này. Nó đối lập. Vì nếu có, sẽ không để những chuyện như thế này xảy ra.
Nào là tụi mày tin vào cái cuộc sống vĩnh cửu. Sao có thời buổi nào mà mày còn mê tín dữ vậy? Sao nó với mày im vậy? Mày nói gì với nó đi.
Sự tồn tại của đức tin, nó thật là mơ hồ.
Mày lại giống nó nữa rồi.
Nghĩ đến thời gian rất ngắn ngủi của đau khổ mà đem so sánh với sự vĩnh cửu thì nó là một khoảnh khắc ngắn không là gì hết.
There you go. So that's our trailer. Yes, Xander. We realized, and I said this when I introduced the movie, that it's a Vietnamese language film. Was the director, how did he communicate his needs to you? Was he Vietnamese only speaking? Was it a he?
Yes.
It was a he.
Yes.
Or did he speak to you communicate his requirements in English or some other third language that we don't know?
Actually, he didn't really speak much English when we worked together. He have a translator, and also he have the other sound editor office, Pao, who will do all the translation to us. Back then, before they flew down, the work process, all I gotta say, we were sent over like a WIP work in progress mix over to them, and they will put all the notes down, so we'll make all the adjustment and changes in English.
Do you usually, when this happens, do you usually then send over a list of requirements that you have?
Yes, before that we have a pre-meeting, like let's say we were like concerned in certain things, let's say if that area is noisy, do we have a chance to ADR? Or let's say have some church music in the background where the nuns are singing, do we have the extra recording of that? And of course, the most important part is all the ambiences in Vietnam, which is very authentic. We might need to request some tracks from them as well. So all this is during the pre-production meeting. We will just tell them about all of this.
Well, have you ever been to Vietnam? Did you have, references that you could use, or were you just hoping with your fingers crossed that you would get it all right when it comes to having to do this project?
Actually, I went to Vietnam after the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I lived in the countryside for around 3 months, which is quite similar to a certain scene which is shot in the countryside. So I kind of like did some recording as well. So kind of understand how quiet the place is and how much is the traffic, and maybe how during the day and night what's the noise floor. So
I understand.
I kind of help out.
Yeah, I know what you
for
mean.
the audience, could you explain what is the noise floor?
Noise floor is like, let's say, if you live in the city, you always hear, like let's say in Singapore, it's very busy, it's always traffic. You hear the train, you hear the traffic, you hear people. But back if you live in countryside, you don't really hear traffic, but you hear the animals, the birds, the wind, the tree rustle. So all this little subtle, and you feel more open. It's not more open than more compressed area in the city. So that's the difference.
That's the difference I feel when I go back to the States and suddenly I can hear everything.
Well, which part of the States?
Oh, which part of the States? There you go. Quiet neighborhood part of this. Xander. Oh, yeah. Xander, was there one re-recording experiment you tried? We're always experimenting, where the results went beyond your expectations? Was there something that you went, I really must try this, otherwise I'll regret this, and at the end you go, wow, this is way better than I thought it would be?
Yeah, at first I kind of like things that is more clean up and polished. Then, wow, this film is like what the director and the sound editor wanted is totally the reverse. They want noise to be in, they want rawness from a Vietnam location sound. So it kind of like give me a learning curve that actually sometimes having certain things give kind of like a flavor to the film itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, something I pick up than being overly clean, and we put layers of ambience ourselves instead. We use that location as much as possible.
That's interesting. So did the director ask for surround as well, to apply Dolby Atmos as well? Because my next few questions will be about it.
Yes.
Or did you recommend? Did you go, well, you know what, sir, we need to go Dolby here?
Yeah, we talk about it, and he's very open to do it in Dolby Atmos and also in Dolby Vision.
Okay.
Yes.
Did he had he experience with Atmos? Let's say if we talk about the sound side first, did he have any experience with Atmos where he knew what he was going in for, or getting out of it, or did he rely on you?
This is first time, yeah.
First time. Did he have any instructions, or did he just leave it to you?
He leave it to us, and he will feedback with us with notes and maybe also like during the session itself.
All right. So, audience members, viewers out there, in case you are not familiar with Atmos and sound mixing, there are sounds, effects, and dialogue stems which someone like Xander in re-recording would have to deal with for the final audio track. Xander, correct me if my terminology is all out of whack, but they typically deal with objects which have absolute positions and bits that kind of called relative positions. So it's good to make bits out of static elements and objects out of moving elements, so that if the room is small, it's still moving where it should be. If the room is big, it's also still moving where it should be, because it's got specific coordinates, so to speak. Is that something that you applied in Cocoon, Xander, that you hope the audience notices now that they understand there's the bit and there's the objects? Or even if it's sound processing in different ways that you hope that it elevated their experience to the point they noticed it. They go, whoa, that's really good.
Maybe some shots, there are long shots for like the outside scene where the character is on the bike. We are really moving together with him. So we build the environment entirely out of the beds using the Dolby Atmos beds, let's say the ambiances. And also we use object space to have all those kind of movement element that, as you can see on the screen, as the main character is moving towards location to location. So that's a place where we really can play around with a lot of objects, because there's a lot of things happening during where he's traveling. So it's really a fun thing to do in Atmos.
Wow, yeah, I can tell. You got the fun job here, Xander.
Yes.
I also know that Mocha Chai did some color processing for the film. Either of you care to comment on what it entailed color processing wise? And for viewers not quite familiar, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are two kind of categories on the processing. There's the grading and there is the correction, and correction kind of makes the film look more natural. Grading kind of gives it a style and a feel.
I would say, if you think in terms of color correction, I would think in terms of, say, when you shoot within the scene, because often when you shoot a film, you don't shoot them at one go. You break them into parts, right? And as you break them into parts, you might shift your lights, or if it's in the outdoors, the lighting condition might change. The correction probably is to fix that, to make sure that within the scene, they look consistent in terms of exposure, color, balance, and so on.
Got it.
And the grading part is where you decide how you want to look, whether it's stylish or not. It's where you do your color grading, previously they call it color timing, but it doesn't matter. It means the same thing.
Thank you.
And when it comes to shaping the look in terms of the picture, it's very much, I would say, the collaboration between the cinematographer as well as the colorist along with the director. It's like a three-way communication where and this is interesting because depending on where you are based, say in Korea, the cinematographer is king. It's very much the one who decides how it should look. But of course, when it comes to an animation, then that line gets blurred because there's no cinematographer. It's the person who's creating the world and along with the director to shape the look of a scene or a location and so on. And color grading, I would say it has become. I think it's a good color grading. You will not notice it when you watch. Like, it's so ironic, right? you look at a film called 300. The picture really pops, right? The way, the stylistic look of it, and so on. But as you go into the film, only thing that can distract you is if it's not done consistently. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, but if it's done consistently, that style, well, after it's introduced to you, you get absorbed into the world, and you will not really be distracted by it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's like reading a good book, but written by an author you've never experienced before. It takes maybe first chapter for you to immerse yourself in the world that they're written about and the characters, and after that, it's smooth journey all the way to the end.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean.
And this good sound design, sound editing, and it should not stand out. It should immerse you into the world more than anything. Again, like things like Atmos and so on, I often have to tell people, hey, just because you have a big canvas doesn't mean you can't just do a dot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it doesn't mean you have a big canvas, you have to make things move all around you. It just means that you have a bigger room to work with it. That's all.
That's a similar philosophy that 2 engineers I interviewed quite a while ago, Bob Clearmountain and Elliot Shiner, and the industry like veterans, and they said again something similar. I'm not going to move the drums all over the place just because I got space. I'm going to leave them where they've always been. So, which leads me to a congratulatory moment for Wonderland, Mocha Chai original, and your most recent feature film that you've directed, Yee Wei.
Thank you.
And this film, and of course Xander as well, and everyone in attendance in live chat, Michelle and Chance, congratulations. Wonderland is Mandarin Chinese and Hokkien movie. Hokkien is a Chinese dialect for our viewers not familiar, set in 80s Singapore. It's a special project as well because, as I said, your co-writer, or your co-founder, Mocha Chai co-founder, who was co-writer and also producer on the movie, is Michelle. She's in the live chat. Wonderland has also won 2 awards, the 2023 Audience Award at the San Diego Asian Film Fest, and just recently the Palm Springs International Film Festival, where they awarded the Local Jury Award. Okay, I have plenty of pictures, of course. I have, here we go, the Wonderland film poster, and a group shot that I stole from either Michelle or Xander or somebody's Facebook, or maybe I went online and I found it. Anyway, I found one. It's a group shot at the Palm Springs International Film Fest on stage. Again, congratulations. I got a snippet, and I'm going to move this forward more speedily. I have a footage of Wonderland. Could someone set the scene for us, please?
Okay. The story is about, again, my recurring theme, I think, in my films about Singaporeans' dream. Right? This one represents probably from the perspective of a parent. I think this is my first film that I made as a father. It talks and so very much of my own experiences as a father, or not so much because in terms of a perspective, right? Because my daughter is only 4 years old, but it's as cliche as it sounds, it really does change the way you see the world, right? Yeah. And I started having nightmares, really about everything that could possibly go wrong, or my fears, and with this little girl also my dreams and my hopes for her. And in a way, I'm channeling all that into this film where it talks about this father, a single father who with this girl, and he sold his kampong house, his old house, to support the daughter to go for education in the United States, by lying to the daughter. And in a way, this film is built on the lies they have in between each other, as well as eventually finding his neighbor helping him to read and write the letters because he's illiterate, having to also keep up with a lie because the daughter met with an accident and passed away, and the neighbor was, along with a bunch of good folks, trying to keep up with a lie by faking letters. But it talks about, what is more important, right? It's the truth or a person's happiness, should they live in their own wonderland, and especially if you're of a certain age, maybe the truth isn't as important as the well-being and everyday.
So we touch on self-expression again. The root of all joy.
and all disappointments. But it's also exploring very much how we Singaporeans look to the West in the 80s. Even, I don't know, maybe much less so now, and 90s, like to the West as our hopes, where we pin our hopes of our future generations, right? And how, I don't know, is that a colonial mindset where we all look to the West as something superior, as our wonderland,
That's another topic that we'll have to cover in another but yeah, that had me thinking a while back as well. Yeah, well, here's the movie trailer, by the way, everybody. Alrighty, viewers out there, that's all I get to show you. Because I got plenty of questions for those two.
You could post a link for the trailer later on the chat or something.
Well, everyone's called Wonderland. You saw the poster, so go look for it. And it was released last year. And it's a Singaporean film. So I know that maybe one or two other Wonderland movies out there. This is not a Hollywood production. This is even better. It's a Singaporean production.
Thank you.
So
well, people in Hollywood like it, so I assume.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting when we talk about territory, isn't it? We all like to think we have our own little community / territory, and we want to protect it and promote it and all. But I've come to realize since all the traveling and making great friends around the world that the world is my territory, and I'd like to think that we're all trying to be good citizens of the world. There you go.
Agreed. Cheers to that.
Thank you. So back to Wonderland. You had 3 co-writers, I understand. I saw 3 names.
Yes.
Besides,
Michelle is the main one, followed by S5E15 and Chan's Wonders. I mean, not in sequence, but S5E15 is the Chinese writer. Chan's is the husband of Michelle. So they came up with the English version.
Oh.
And then we had it turned into Mandarin so that the cast could read it because the film is not in English.
Yes.
And then we had to, through rehearsals and so on, rewrite it again because it was in a language that none of the writers were familiar with, which is Hokkien.
Oh. Yeah.
And so it's the final shooting version is very much a work that is collaboratively contributed, you know.
That leads to my next question, because I kind of assumed that everyone, the 3 writers and you, had the same background or similar background. But now that you bring up the language thing, because, you know, one thing in one language when translated doesn't quite have the same oomph sometimes, you know. So how much trust was needed between you and the writers to make sure the vision was just right? Were you very possessive of your vision? Were they very possessive of their vision? Because I know the writers had their own personal stories to tell as well that made the vision so much more rich, so much richer.
So I think we all have to, in terms of working in a collaborative project, we all have to, in a way, check our ego at the door. But at the same time, we need to respect each other's contributions as well. When the story came from me, the idea came from me. I came out with the first outline, and from there, when I give it to someone else to take a step, I do have to say, hey, tear it apart. You know, I will have to take a step back, and have to put in context. Before getting to the version that Michelle had a step at, we spent 2 years.
Wow.
With different writers working on different versions.
Oh,
so
really?
In a way, every one version is building on top of the mistakes of the previous ones to get to where we eventually said, okay, this is good enough. Who says it's good enough? I have to be the one, right? And then from there, how do I still manipulate it to the final form? The writer will have to say, okay, I'm happy for you to use this as a foundation to mold it. And as different people contribute, say the Chinese writer as well as the actors themselves, we would have to keep each of our egos at check. That's what I meant when we all have to say, okay, I understand this part more than you do from the character's perspective. The dialogue should be changed this way. As a director, yes, I might be the one saying yes or no, but I have to allow that room for everyone to navigate with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Speaking of permission, let's move on to Xander, because I hope Yee Wei didn't put you in too much of a little corner and said, I want that. But Xander questions, so I noticed during the open house where, you know, you and your sound designer, Sin Yin Chong, actually gave us a little walkthrough of a particular scene where she pulled apart the sonic elements of the scene with Mark Lee, the actor, at the sync, separating frequency bands, boosting certain ones, reconstituting them, then painting in environmental sounds to make the scene more true to the script. Is, again, always curious, is this a manual process or do you have automation somehow, somewhere? Because I can't imagine me having to do all of that. Particularly the analysis thing, you know, because I remember you extracted the water from the it hitting the sync sound, and then I think you boosted the lows in the water. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so, was this all a year training thing, or did you have some help?
It's all a year training thing. Basically, what singing does is she's like, after cleaning up the location sound of the, let's say the water, it become very tint. So there's no like the low frequency. So on top of that, what we do manually, we have to add a few more layers of like water sound.
Oh.
So we layer them together and make sure the frequency is like, we have the highs, also we have the lows, and also have the mids. So everything is all there. So everything sounds fuller. It's similar to music mixing in a way. You need your guitar, you need your bass, so everything is fuller.
Wow. So when you reconstitute the sounds, do you find that it's too much? Do you still end up thinking, now I have to thin them out? Because if it's like mixing a song and you add, you make every sound full, at the end they kind of just muddy it all up. Have you ever had to go, well, that wasn't a great idea?
It definitely happens a lot of times. So we will like adjust again. Because best is to have everything, then we reduce them, then we have nothing. That during the mix stage we need to fill them up. It's quite a hassle, and also like in terms of time also.
It's a good problem to have more and then reduce from the more than to have nothing to work with.
Got it. And how do you make decisions? Do you do it independently of the director, let's say? How do you decide which needs to be touched up, so to speak?
Usually we will touch up based on the audio perspective. Then we definitely let the director to watch it in terms of what kind of, in terms of direction of the sound. Usually came more towards from the director. Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Say that. You know what?
Jump.
In terms of sound, I'm not there sitting in and watching every element and approving every element. That's not how I work. At least that I don't think that should be how it works. We start out with a spotting session, call it. So before anything is done, we sit down and we sit through with the sound people and we talk about every single scene as we watch through the film and say, hey, how do I want this scene to feel? What are my expectations for different scenes? Some are pretty straightforward, two-person talking. Maybe there isn't much other than, cleaning things up. There's nothing much to comment on. So for me, I give a general direction of how I want people to feel when they watch certain scenes. Not so much I want a specific sound in here, unless there is a need for that, right? But it doesn't happen on a scene-by-scene basis, right? You know what I mean? On certain scenes, you pay attention to certain things. And after that, they are off to do the things that they need to do. Like, I don't have to be there to tell them how to clean up the dialogue. I don't have to be there to tell them exactly how this environment should sound, because they probably would do some of their own research to fill some of these things. And after they're done, after a few weeks or whatever, we come in and say, hey, this is the first pass, what do you think? And then we tweak from there. So it's, in a way, that's why they have their own contribution. It's more for me.
It's interesting because you have sound acuity. I can't think of another way to express it. You have musical ears, or you have ears that are very sensitive to the sonic elements, and you are letting someone else who is skilled in an area, you have to trust that they have similar sonic element acuity.
In fact, actually, I'm looking not so much as similarity. I'm looking to be surprised by things that I have my own blind. I'm always aware I have blind spots, right? I only know as much as my own experience. What do other people bring into the picture or into the sound?
Yeah, I understand. That's a good working relationship.
It should be like this, right? If not, you just get every movie just need one person. You don't even need actors, right? You just need AI to generate everything.
Don't say that word again. Final question for Xander about the sound. Can you recount an experience where the sound design profoundly affected the final product? Like an anecdote, that was a particular area. Because we want to learn from you. The viewers, they checking into Xander Toh nominated for Best Sound. What can we learn from him?
Let's say for Wonderland, we try to make things sound really from the 80s. So we really do a few research. Let's say the traffic back then in the 80s, how does it sound? In terms of like, we also have like used National Archive for their old tracks of music. So we can use it for their diegetic tracks on the radios and on TV. So all these things we need to do some research. So we always need to put things that is really suit the movie itself when we created it. Yeah, especially from that period of time. So we need to do really research. Like let's say if Mark Lee lived in a kampong, let's say his taps or his equipments are more rusty. So it's like you need to sound a bit more aged, not so clean, compared to the places.
I hear you. We have sound effects libraries for soundtracks and all kinds of stuff. But we don't really have sound effects for Singapore in the 70s or the 80s. How did you end up getting, like pedestrian traffic noise or whatever you needed of environmental sounds or noises? Did you have to make up your own or did you sample or?
We all usually make up our own. We like, let's say for ambiences, I use in fact like all countries like ambiences and blend with a bit of traffic to create that 80s traffic, which is not too noisy compared to now.
Yeah.
So we kind of like blend in certain things and singing does like mix, let's say neighbor sounds.
Yeah.
Was watch that she recorded. And also blend in some of the HDB ambiences, which is currently now, and also we on top of that we use some like countryside winds, so it sounds a bit like not too clean up, not too plush, a bit more, sound a bit country and city in between. Yeah, this is how we blend it in.
Boy, good thing you didn't have to worry about horses and rickshaw pullers and
that is, we have to have a good Foley team to do that. Yes. And also,
you have to start a Foley department.
Also we need, especially let's say if it's an age film, the most important thing I think is crucial is the wala, the language they spoke and how they speak and how loud they talk. Yeah, this is even more crucial. Yeah, to make the scenario, the scene work.
Wow, there you go, viewers. Speaking of viewers, do you have any questions as we walk through the final bit of our live stream? Everyone's so quiet. It's like, whoa, this is so good. We're just gonna concentrate on what they're saying. We're glued to the screen. All right, while you conjure up your questions, I'll move on to my last few questions. And again, if I hadn't, please congratulations. Please congratulate the team of Mocha Chai for their wins for their original Wonderland made in Singapore. Please go check it out. So, Yee Wei, Xander, speaking of AI, I know I said not to bring it up again, but I shall. I have the prerogative because I hold the mic. Peter Jackson, you're familiar with him. His documentary Let It Be used AI to uncover and isolate conversations from performances by the Beatles that have remained unheard and unreported for 50 years. This is an article from guitar.com, 2021. What is one thing AI has made possible and flawless in your work that was only a dream not that long ago?
There's certain AI dialogue enhancer, but we can use it, but we can't use it fully. We can only steal certain words out of the whole sentences. It does help out if you need to clean up certain words.
Oh, so it's not as flawless as we think it could be yet.
Yet, I think. I mean, but I think in a few years it will really enhance the dialogue very well.
How about on your side, Yee Wei?
Again, being someone who is quite an avid adopter of new technologies, I have been playing with some of the AI tools. I'm extremely impressed. And I don't think we should so much fear it, but much more how do we make use of it? Because if you think about it, there's so many people now just downloading and trashing it out and trying all different possibilities. And what we have to realize is the more people jump onto trying it out, the smarter it will be. Okay? And in the long run, it can only benefit us. We keep thinking in terms of things killing jobs, right? But we should not forget that this kind of phases has come and go for a lot of our other current modern jobs. For instance, there was no such thing as an online shop. There's no such thing as a webmaster before internet was created, right? And for every shop that might have been impacted with an online shop, new careers are also being created in the virtual space for the same, in a different form. When it comes to doing audio cleanups and so on, often we're like, hey, you know what? The tools are getting better, but it actually solves one. It does contribute to one problem that we used to complain about as well. That we often say, hey, because on set, often recording may not be ideal. We spend more time cleaning up the technicals than to spend time on the creative, which is to create the sound design. Imagine good AI tools may actually solve that, fixing in post and get us to creating in post faster. So as opposed to fighting it and not letting it grow, we should actually let it grow and see how it can help us.
Is there an AI tool that you use in your work, like Xander has?
Actually, we've been trying out a few, right? Which was, wow, mind-blowing.
All right, you have to share it with me in an email, I think, unless you want to share it with our viewers.
The tool, you can just share the tool that we've been trying out.
Recently, we're using a dialogue cleanup tool. It's called Clearer. You know, back then it's a beta version. It's called Goyo. Right now we're using Clear. It's actually sound, in my opinion, better than RX Isotope. Yeah, currently.
So yeah, the legacy, the legates will have to worry if they do not move, because people are going to use this opportunity to disrupt. Right? We either say, hey, we're going to embrace it, or we're going to be left behind. And the fear is if we fight it, we would be left behind, because other people are going to take the tool and fly, and we're going to be left on the ground. But it's up to us, right? I'll give you another really, and you probably wouldn't think about it. Like many cases, people send files to us and say, hey, these are the low quality versions, and we needed a high quality graphic, for instance, not necessarily photos, but the photos part is getting better, right? They give low quality and aliased images, and let's say a title logo, and they don't have the source file because it's too old. With AI, they are able to regenerate that without requiring a human to recreate it from scratch. That's time saved, that's money saved, and yeah, it's a restoration in a way, you know, of something
agree
that
with
had
you.
been lost.
And from AI, what would you consider, besides AI, if there is such a thing, the latest and greatest trend or innovation that you'd like to see adopted by the film industry? If there is one. If not, I've got other questions.
I don't know.
You know what? I think at every stage there's something new. At one point it was 3D. That has sort of come and gone, but people don't realize that the recent 3D we had was not the first time we had 3D. We had 3D from the first day the cinematograph was invented. People have been wanting to have 3D, good 3D viewing.
I remember, I think was sometime in the 90s, I was in LA for, I think, one of the SIGGRAPH conventions, and there's this guy who exhibited, this old gentleman who exhibited one of the first 3D cinema booths called the Sensorama. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I heard of that.
So you could watch the movie, you know, because you're engulfed this way, but it had smell as well. So you had the sound and the smell. It's a booth version, right? Yeah, it had everything. And that was considered quite progressive at that point in time.
So I mean, there are always new things coming out. Which one would be the one that stays? We can't predict, but for me, it's just try them all. HDR in the cinema, I think that will be the big one that eventually, when it comes, will usher in a new experience for the cinema going audience. Because I think cinema has been pretty much the same in the past 10, 15 years, whereas your screens on your palm, the mobile phones as well as home, is technically more advanced than the cinema projection you get in the cinemas. And maybe that's why people are not going to the cinema, not because there's no good content, simply we have better screens in our palm. And the cinemas will have to evolve to bring the audience back, I think.
I've got one question for each of you. Xander first. What's the best piece of advice you've received in this journey, you know, through doing the various roles of sound for film?
Be very detail oriented and focus on one element at a time. Don't put too much things in one go. It will kind of make the whole mix muddy in the mix stage. Yeah, so really focus on each element.
Wow.
Detailedly.
There you go. A lot of patience in that. And for Yee Wei, I've got it here. How many more stories do you want to tell, or that you have that you need to tell?
It's only limited my ability to find money.
Yeah, right.
Stories that I probably wouldn't be able to tell in my lifetime. And it's not just Singapore stories, right? I'm talking about any stories that I could have access to. Of my 5 films, 2 of which 3 are Singaporean, 1 is Malaysian, 1 is Chinese. And in terms of series, I've directed 1 in Indonesia and 1 in Taiwan. So for me, it doesn't quite matter the stories, where they're from, but it's whether I can tell them well or not, whether it's a story I can tell. I can't possibly tell every story I want to tell, but so I have to pick and see what story can I tell the best? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. I hear you. I got a similar problem with my music. I generate these little, bits and bytes, right? Like, oh, I got this sound, I'm going to do, I get 4 bars and then they get shelved aside and then I do another 4 bars and at the end of a month I got a list of 4 bar stuff and which one should I tell the story of now? So, we got a comment from our friend in Netherlands. So I'll end with that comment and then
Give me a second, because I got a low battery notification. I'm just gonna plug in the power for my
Sure.
laptop.
While you do that, I'll share the comment of our friend from the Netherlands, Dread Red Earth Dragon. Hey, Dread Red. So nice to see you. If I didn't say hello earlier on, he says, today I was thinking the I Ching is one of the first forms of AI. You input a question or a problem, and after doing the little ritual to construct, where I just disappeared, to construct the hexagrams, out comes a meaningful answer. Yeah, I've never used the I Ching or I Ching.
I don't consider that an AI. It's more a game of chance.
Game of chance.
To me, it's like what cards do you call that? The
tarot? No.
Tarot cards.
Yeah.
Because it does not actually interpret. It's more of our interpretation, I feel, more than its own interpretation. Yeah. Whereas AI has the capability to self-generate.
There we go. That's a good response to that. But thanks, Earth Dragon. Always good to see you, though, because Netherlands, I don't know what time it is now, but I can imagine it's probably very early or very late. I don't recall. Someone tell me. You tell me. But here's a little research I did according to media research, and this will be my last question unless the viewers have one, so we can let Xander and Yee Wei go for morning tea or lunch. They've been with us really generously for more than 2 hours already. So here was a customer survey done in 2020 by Media Research. It seemed the pandemic lockdown turned out to be a golden era for digital entertainment. So I, along with a whole slew of people, experienced international movies for a change, like let's say if we are consumers of streaming services like Netflix, you used to getting, Hollywood movies or indie movies, but from America, and then British movies, and suddenly we had Korean and Japanese and Malaysian and even Singaporean movies. How do you think we could better market our Made in Singapore movies to audiences near and afar? Because our content is very local. Not that's a bad thing, but local means you must have a translator of some sort, right? Or some way to say, well, this is what it is. And when we say this is what it means. Or, here is an accompanying filmlet or documentary so you understand Singapore in the 80s, that kind of thing. Because we've kind of kept undercover as Singapore a lot of our past. We always show off our shiny new bits, but the past is somewhat unknown. So, yes, that's my question.
Okay. I think a good story doesn't require you to study its history in order to delve into it, right? To appreciate it. Case in point, you watch Wonderland. Yet I'm looking at Americans, the other side of the world, who has no idea maybe even where Singapore is. Some might even think it's part of China, who knows? But it doesn't matter, right? So what comes through? A relationship between a father, a daughter, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, it's universal values, right? You watch a Korean film. Does the Korean show or film try to be Singaporean in order for the Singaporeans to understand it? No, they stay true to what they are. And we, through a tool that has been invented called subtitles or dubbing, and we get a glimpse into how other people's world view, other people's perspective, values are. We can use it to compare. We can use it to find similarities or not. And in a way, books do that too. They get translated into different languages, and there are basically different stories in different languages, but the values do not change, right? Universal values are pretty much, if you think about it, as long as we have existed, we share values across the pond, from our culture to other culture. You find even foods, you find similar foods, like, we think curry puff is a local thing, but then you look at somewhere in Middle East, they have something similar that looks like a curry puff. Why? Because we share ingredients, we share spices, and how we manipulate them, come up with similar form, pasta versus noodles versus, and so I think we do not have to worry about our local perspective of the world. We just have to stay true to that perspective. Going hyper local may not mean it will not travel. That's what I want to try to probably convince people, because there is I feel it's wrong way of thinking in terms of saying that we have to do films that reach out to the international audience. I say, hey, we have to just make a good film with translatable values, and it will travel as a result. Hong Kong didn't. Hong Kong had less than 10 million people, same as us, and yet they were making hyper local Hong Kong content that sold to the world. So people who accuse us of not having a big enough market, I say no, we haven't tried hard enough. We've been trying in a different direction. We've been trying to please the world, when we should be thinking of how do we rear and consume our own local chicken, than to always import chicken, and then when imported chicken got stopped and we are suffering, right?
That's right, you chicken eaters out there. How about Xander? Do you have any advice or anecdote or opinion or thought that you'd like to leave our viewers with about doing sound in the film industry, or the progress of sound in the film industry, or?
I think I'll still go back to the fundamentals, and basic is always the most important aspect of everything. We need to get really the basic right first before we move on to any design or any other things else.
If there was one role under the sound for film, because we've kind of listed some of the roles that you played, that you would like to do most of, which would it be?
Last time I used to do a lot of dialogue editing. Right now, I love to do more sound design and mixing.
There you go. Thanks. And any questions from our viewers? If not, I'm going to wind it up so that the folks can go have their, as I said, morning tea or lunch. No? All right. Let's give them an applause and thank them for being here, Yee Wei Chai. I'm sorry, I don't know why I mispronounced your name. And Xander Toh. Sometimes when I'm reading something and I'm speaking at the same time, not what I'm reading, that's when that crosstalk happens. My apologies. But thank you again so much to both of you. We've totally and utterly enjoyed having you on the live stream, and hope you had fun too. And we wish you exciting projects ahead, and keep me posted when you have your next new shiny a feature film you'd like to chat about,
Thank
or
you.
other awards or other sound stuff that you're doing. And please continue to stay safe. I hope I'll see you in person again soon. Want to give you one of these and see if it responds. Yay! Oh, there you go. Viewers, you have been awesome too. Please subscribe to my channel to be alerted to more episodes of Music and Chat. And to everyone out there, if you know of a band that is releasing a new album, I have a Music and Chat expose segment that looks at new albums. So Xander, if your band has a new album, let us know. And Happy New Year, everyone. And everyone as well, stay safe. Okay, I'm gonna go to outro credits, and then Xander, you and Yee Wei stay there, and I'll come chat with you and say goodbye. Okay, bye everyone. See you soon.